The leaked documents arrived at Magnus Carlsen's Oslo apartment on a Tuesday morning, delivered by an anonymous whistleblower who had risked their career to expose the truth. Inside the manila envelope were financial records, private emails, and investment portfolios that would shake the Norwegian government to its core. Education Minister Lars Henriksen, the man responsible for shaping young Norwegian minds, had been systematically destroying chess education while secretly profiting from the very gaming companies that were replacing it in schools. You see, what Magnus was about to uncover would prove that corruption doesn't always come from foreign conspiracies or international networks. Sometimes the greatest threat to something you love comes from your own government, hiding behind smiles and public statements while selling out the future for personal profit. And the trail of evidence Magnus was following would lead him to discover something even more disturbing about the Oslo municipal conspiracy that reached far deeper than one corrupt minister. Magnus spread the documents across his dining table, his world-champion analytical mind immediately recognizing the patterns that revealed months of coordinated deception. Henriksen's public statements about modernizing education and preparing students for the digital age took on a sinister new meaning when viewed alongside his private financial investments. The timeline was damning. In January, Henriksen had announced cuts to chess education funding, claiming budget constraints required difficult but necessary decisions. But the leaked bank records showed that just weeks earlier, he had invested over 2 million Norwegian kroner in Nordic Gaming Solutions, a company that specialized in replacing traditional educational activities with digital entertainment platforms. Chess programs are outdated relics that don't serve modern educational needs, Henriksen had declared during a parliamentary hearing, but his private emails told a different story. The chess cuts will create market opportunities for our digital partners. Students need entertainment, not old-fashioned thinking games. Magnus felt his anger building as he read correspondence between Henriksen and gaming company executives. They weren't just discussing business investments. They were strategically planning the elimination of chess from Norwegian schools to create captive audiences for addictive gaming platforms that generated enormous profits. The scope of the betrayal was breathtaking. Chess programs that had operated in Norwegian schools for decades were being systematically defunded and replaced with gaming platforms owned by companies in Henriksen's investment portfolio. Students who could have been developing critical thinking skills through chess were instead being directed toward mindless digital entertainment that enriched the very politician claiming to serve their educational interests. But what truly shocked Magnus was discovering the psychological manipulation underlying Henriksen's strategy. Internal company documents revealed detailed plans for using gaming platforms to condition young minds toward instant gratification and passive consumption, specifically targeting the patience and analytical thinking that chess naturally developed. Chess requires students to think independently and question authority, one internal memo explained. Gaming platforms encourage compliance and consumption. From a social management perspective, gaming serves our interests much better than traditional, intellectual activities. Magnus realized he was looking at evidence of a coordinated attack on intellectual development itself. This wasn't just financial corruption. It was systematic mental manipulation of Norwegian children for political and economic benefit. The private emails became increasingly explicit about the political advantages of eliminating chess education. Students who learn chess develop inconvenient habits of strategic thinking and long-term planning, Henriksen had written to a gaming executive. They become harder to manipulate and more likely to question political decisions. Gaming students are much more manageable. As Magnus compiled his evidence, he began noticing references to something called the Oslo municipal conspiracy scattered throughout the documents. Brief mentions of coordination with city officials, mysterious references to Phase 2 implementation, and coded language about expanding the program beyond education into other areas of youth development. The municipal partners are ready for the next phase, One email fragment read. Once we complete the school system integration, we can begin targeting recreational and community programs. Magnus understood that Henriksen's educational corruption was just the beginning of something much larger. The Oslo municipal conspiracy appeared to involve local politicians who were planning to extend the gaming company partnerships into every aspect of young people's lives: sports programs, community centers, even public libraries. The financial evidence was overwhelming. Henriksen had received over 5 million kroner in investment returns from gaming companies over the past 2 years, all while making public statements about the need to prioritize limited educational resources. His personal wealth had increased dramatically during the same period he was claiming Norway couldn't afford to support chess programs. But the most damning evidence came from recorded conversations between Henriksen and gaming executives discussing the long-term social engineering implications of their strategy. A generation raised on instant gratification gaming will be much easier to govern, Henriksen had said during one secretly recorded meeting. They'll be less likely to engage in complex political thinking or challenge systemic authority. Magnus felt sick as he realized the full scope of what was being done to Norwegian children. This wasn't just about money or even political power. It was about fundamentally reshaping how young minds developed, steering them away from independent thinking and toward passive consumption that served political and economic interests. The leaked documents also revealed Henriksen's awareness that his actions were being monitored by others within the government who disapproved of his methods. "We need to be more careful about documentation," he had written in a recent email. "Some of our parliamentary colleagues are asking uncomfortable questions about the chess funding cuts." This suggested that Henriksen's corruption wasn't supported by the entire Norwegian government, which gave Magnus hope that exposing the truth might actually lead to meaningful change rather than being suppressed by a completely corrupted systems. Magnus prepared his evidence for public release. He discovered one final piece of information that confirmed his worst suspicions about the Oslo municipal conspiracy. A partially redacted email that mentioned coordinating with Bergen Associates and expanding the model to other Norwegian cities. The corruption wasn't limited to Oslo. Henriksen was apparently part of a network of Norwegian politicians who were implementing similar schemes across the country, systematically replacing educational activities that developed critical thinking with entertainment platforms that generated profits and created more compliant citizens. Magnus realized that exposing Henriksen was just the first step in a much larger battle to protect Norwegian children from politicians who viewed their mental development as something to be manipulated for personal and political gain. But Magnus Carlsen hadn't become world champion by backing down from difficult fights. He had built his career on the principles of analytical thinking, strategic planning, and patient execution. Exactly the qualities that Henriksen's conspiracy was trying to eliminate from Norwegian education. The evidence was comprehensive, the corruption was undeniable, and the threat to Norwegian children was immediate. Magnus began preparing for what would become his most important battle yet. Not against international chess opponents, but against Norwegian politicians who had betrayed the trust placed in them by parents and students throughout the country. As he organized the leaked documents for public release, Magnus couldn't help but think about all the young Norwegian chess players whose educational opportunities had been stolen to enrich a corrupt minister and his gaming company partners. Those children deserved better from their government, and Magnus was determined to make sure they got it. The war against educational corruption in Norway was about to begin, and Magnus Carlsen was ready to fight with the same dedication and strategic brilliance that had made him the world's best chess player. But this time, instead of fighting for personal glory, he was fighting for the minds and futures of an entire generation. The leaked documents were just the beginning. The Oslo municipal conspiracy was about to be exposed, and Norwegian politics would never be the same. Magnus had always believed that chess could change the world by teaching people to think clearly and plan strategically. Now he was about to prove that a world champion chess player could change politics by applying those same principles to the fight against corruption and the defense of educational integrity. The battle for Norwegian children's minds was about to begin, and Magnus Carlsen intended to win it.